Hello guys, and welcome to another weekly review. This is week 20. Last week was Bless the Hearts, which was week 19 because that was just airing by itself. That's a week, supposedly. So it's week 20. All 5 shows are back. The Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, Bless the Hearts, and The Great North. All here for yours truly, me, to review. Let's get started. Starting with The Simpsons and Burger Kings. This one sees Mr. Burns invest in the plant-based meat business after going to the hospital after eating red meat, and then the doctors tell him, oh, it's healthier to do that. So then Lisa gets happy that he's doing something good, and then Marge invests in stocks, and that's like 2 minutes of filler. What the hell is this, honestly? Because this just seems like a bunch of jokes just slapped on just to fill time that don't even work. Like, I probably laughed once and smiled once. Like the Stranger Things reference, I laughed. I smiled at the LGBTQ BLT burger joke. Then again, I realized this episode was written by the same guy who did the 700 episode Major Things, which I thought was terrible. Now keep in mind, this is just my opinion, so if you like those episodes, good for you. I don't like the characterization in this. It's so bad. Like, in Major Things, Maud was acting like a bitch and she was so out of character, even though regular Maud wouldn't do that. It just pissed me off to no end. And then Lisa thinks Mr. Burns is suddenly a good guy because he's doing plant-based meat. Like, Mr. Burns has always been a bad, like a bad person. He's never been one that's actually kind and stuff, and I don't know why they thought having Lisa think Mr. Burns was a good guy was a good thing, and then Mr. Burns has never given a crap about what other people think of him, yet in this episode he's someone does. Like, none of these characterizations don't make sense. And also Krusty has been really unfunny now. Like, every joke about Krusty nowadays is, one, he introduces a new product that fails miserably, then he starts to cry. It's not funny, it never will be. Like, the only okay part in this episode, in my opinion, was like, Lisa finds out Mr. Burns is destroying endangered plants to make his burgers, so then Homer decides to tell the customers even though he's under a non-disclosure agreement, so he uses legal loopholes to tell them that Mr. Burns is, endangering the rainforest. Which I thought was kind of clever, and it was fine. I don't need to talk about Marge investing in stocks, that was just nothing. There's no punchline to any of this. They're all just nonsense, non sequiturs. They don't do anything to make the story funny or interesting. Like, this episode was just so boring. The story was predictable and bland. The characters were out of place. I just hope the final 4 episodes don't reach this, because this is certainly one of the worst episodes I've seen in quite some time. And, I didn't like Major Things, I didn't like the 7-Beer Itch, but somehow this takes the cake for being even worse than those. Even though the 7-Beer Itch is so generic and so bland, at least it has some jokes. This one has nearly nothing. So yeah, probably worst of the season so far. We'll see. Next up we have Family Guy and Who's Brian Now? This one sees Brian discover that he has a microchip, claiming that he belonged to a rich family before the Griffins. Once he realizes that he enjoys their lifestyle more, he moves in with them, then he moves back in with the Griffins at the end. Kind of like The Simpsons. I don't know what this is. It's such a waste of an episode, first of all. Like the first 10 minutes are just gags. There's no story. There's no plot. Like, the plot doesn't appear until the second half, which is a problem because it's not funny. Like, there's nothing to keep me entertained or interested, apart from a few funny jokes, like Peter draws a cartoon rocket for himself to go into space, then he starves because he forgets to draw food. I thought that was probably the best joke in the episode. I also liked Seth MacFarlane being honest about Ted 2. I haven't seen Ted 2, but I'm sure he's being honest about it. He said it was okay, so he probably didn't like how it turned out. And then I liked Stewie telling Chris Cool Whip, and then Chris goes batshit crazy. It gets kind of old after a while though. But nothing else was really funny to me. The Robert Loggia stuff is just stupid. They need to stop doing that. Again, the problem with Who's Brian Now is plot direction. Like, the first half, as I said, is full of nonsense gags before it gets into the actual plot. The plot basically is, in a paragraph nutshell, Brian goes back to his old family. They treat him like dirt. They refuse to let him sit at the table. They make him eat dog food. He can't sleep on the bed. Then he goes back to the Griffins. It ends. That's it. It's just nothing. Like, the premise provided by Fox actually sounded like this could be good, but it's just wasted. None of this is funny or interesting. It's pretty boring, to be honest. Even though it has some funny jokes, like, if it didn't have any of those funny jokes, it'd probably be just as bad as The Simpsons. Like, to be honest. But Family Guy has done worse this season, so even if it didn't have any jokes, it'd still be somewhat better than. And then there's Fraud, La Famiglia Guy, whatever the other one was, I forgot what the name of it was. Whatever. You know, but this was just a waste of a potential waste of an episode. I don't know, I think I should stop reviewing this show, to be honest. Next up we have Bob's Burgers and Fingers Loose. This one sees Mr. Frank assigning Tina to crack down on a case when he finds out something fishy is going on with the students, which turns out they're like, the students are playing with their fingers and like trying to imitate real people dancing in them. And they have like little outfits, and somehow they're banned, even though they're so harmless. And the kids start taking it to secret areas just to do it, so they don't see. So the school staff don't see it. And then on the side, Teddy asks Bob and Linda to help him sneak food into the movies. But honestly, this one was really good. I actually really liked it. And you know, I've been quite negative this video because the other two episodes before it were bad, but this one actually ended up being really good. So I had something to smile about. You know, this show proves that after 200 episodes, it can still be as fresh as ever. It's also super consistent how good it is. I really enjoyed the dark film noir aspect of the episode, with Tina as the narrator. It kind of brings a speakeasy vibe to it, and the jazzy soundtrack was really good. I also liked it, again, because it's funny, it's fresh, it's creative. You know, a good thing about this episode is it doesn't use one of Tina's worst character traits to write a story about it. Like, last episode, the Tina Tambien one, the one where she learns Spanish, has that same problem. Where, like, one of Tina's worst character traits is her obsession over boys. That stuff has never clicked with me, to be honest, because she goes like so overboard with it. It's the same in E2. It's the same in the Tina Tambien episode from last week. Like, that one didn't land for me for quite some reasons. I mean, it's certainly better than Family Guy and The Simpsons this week, but that's not really a high bar to conquer. But you know, when you use Tina's good traits, you can come up with good episodes like this. I also like that we got to see more of the kids, like Alex, Courtney, Rudy, and Cy, even Millie. Like, Millie's middle finger to Mr. Fun was really funny to me. I got a big laugh out of that one, but I still don't care about her as a character. She's annoying, she's irritating. Like, I can see why Louise doesn't like her. And I don't feel sorry for Millie either. And like, you're supposed to feel sorry for her? No, you're not supposed to feel sorry for her, because she's annoying, she's irritating, she's unlikable, she's annoying. Well, I already said annoying, but, like, I remember in the season 4 episode Fortnite, she locks them in the cave. I mean, she locks them in the fort, and then, what? Like, that just made me hate her even more, so, you know, because I really don't like Millie. That just made me hate her even more. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. I like the callbacks and somewhat continuity, like Linda's armpit hairnets, the mention of Kathleen from the Helen Hunt in season 9, Tina coming back to be a hall monitor. I like how Tina broke the rules at the end as an apology to her siblings for luring Mr. Fun there. But I thought it was really creative and good that it ends up being Jean who lured Mr. Frond in. So like, but it was also kind of funny how the superintendent ended up loving the presentations. Like, why ban the fingers? As I said, they're harmless fun. The B plot was kind of nothing. It's fine. Like, I didn't find it funny, with the exception of that Jane eats food off Linda's armpits. Yeah, I can see why some people don't think it's funny, but Gene is gross, so it fits with his character. You know, oh, okay, armpits are gross, so is Gene. It fits with his character, in my opinion. As for other funny stuff in the episode that I can name off the top of my head, one of my favorites was when Gene allowed Tina to give him the chicken nuggets in the bathtub, but because she ratted them out, he wouldn't talk to her. It's just so funny when someone gets mad at you, but then still wants you to be there with them. I don't know why, I just thought that was really funny. Fingers Loose is such a great, creative, and interesting episode of Bob's Burgers. It only furthers my point that this show can be fresh and consistently good 200 episodes in. Plus the writers are Lizzie and Wendy Molyneux, who are some of Bob's Burgers' best writers, and they're also behind The Great North, and that's why I dig that show too. So, 5 more episodes, plus 45 more in 2 more seasons. I can't wait for all of them. Next up, we have Bless the Harts and Hot Tub-tation. This one sees Wayne get an old hot tub, and he becomes addicted to the hot tub party life, to the point where he forgets their Jenny and Wayne's anniversary dinner. And then Betty gets banned from a department store after complaining too much, so then she disguises herself like Roger Smith, like a Roger Smith alias, just to go and attend sales. But then she starts enjoying the store clerk's company to the point where even she can hold her alias forever. And this episode was much better than last week, to be honest. But I don't think it's great. It's good, but I feel like something's missing. I think for the most part it's not very funny. It's like, in terms of laughs, it's fine. I thought it was enjoyable. The hot tub plot wasn't great. It kind of felt like a more mundane version of the American Dad hot tub episode, because the American Dad hot tub episode was dark, it was funny, it was interesting. I mean, this one's nice, but it's not as funny, obviously. I like seeing the callbacks to the snakeheads and Wayne's hallucinations, and it's nice to see Wayne be a big shot, but it just wasn't funny. I felt bad for Jenny when Wayne got caught up in the party life and he missed their dinner. To be honest, it's just nice to change the characters' things up a little bit. Usually it's Wayne or someone else who gets upset at Jenny for going too far, but this time, well, I mean, in Nosebud, Jenny got upset at Wayne, but her upsetness there kind of wasn't justified. But in Hot Tub-tation, her upsetness with Wayne is definitely more justified. Yeah, and it's nice to see a different side of Jenny Hart, because it proves that yes, she can be wild and have a good time, but she also knows a good balance of life and knows when it's time to have fun and when it's time not to. And I honestly also really liked her hairstyle while she was waiting to eat dinner with Wayne, and he never showed up. But I like, even though that hairstyle will probably never appear again, I actually really liked it. I like when they change up her hairstyles. Like in the Dog Turn Candidate, they show what she's like when she's waking up in the morning, and it just feels nice to see something different. They even get their kind of happy ending when Wayne ends up selling the hot tub after Jenny gets mad at him. Deep down, Jenny loves Wayne. That's nice. It's sweet. One of my favorite things behind this episode was actually Jenny going into the pool. She was angry at Wayne. She wouldn't talk. And then she starts drinking. She gets drunk. And then she pees in the pool. Which honestly was really funny. Like, that was probably the funniest part of it, in my opinion. This episode wasn't that funny. Again, the subplot was the stronger part, in my opinion. It was kind of amusing going back and forth between the store clerk and Betty. I also like that Betty got some good character development. She's complaining. It frustrates the store clerk. Then when she disguises herself as Rhonda Witherspoon, the Roger Smith disguise, kind of even though Roger doesn't have that disguise, obviously. After noticing how another older woman complains, and that frustrates Julian, Betty was finally able to see how he really felt. She couldn't see that when she was complaining, obviously, so it made her a more compassionate and kinder person. I mean, I wouldn't have minded if she reverted back to her crazy self, but I mean, this ending wasn't bad. She got unbanned from the store, which was kind of nice. I did not expect she would get unbanned from the store. I thought it would just de-escalate, and then she would like, oh, I don't care if I'm banned from the store now. See ya, y'all, that kind of thing. This episode's enjoyable, but it's lower than most of the second season. It just wasn't that funny, but I did like the idea between temptations and addictions. They're nice to watch. It's definitely more reserved and calm, kind of like King of the Hill, but in some ways it's different enough to make it not seem like a copy paste. It's enjoyable enough, which is nice, especially after last week's weaker outing. And finally, we have The Great North and Keep Beef-lievin Adventure, a parody of Keep Believing. This one sees Moon stop believing in Bigfoot when he activates a trap, and Bigfoot ends up not being there, and then all his friends start teasing him about it because he still has the belief, and then he decides to realize that it probably doesn't exist. And then on the side, Honeybee's brother Jerry, who ends up falling into Moon's trap, he pays a visit, and then he decides he wants to move to Alaska too. But then Honeybee keeps telling him that he shouldn't follow her just to, be happy. He can do his own things. So then he realizes Alaska is probably not for him. And it's good to be back after 3 weeks, to be honest, because we really needed the Great North back on the lineup, just because Bob's Burgers and Bless the Hearts for the most part can't save the mediocrity or poor trash that Family Guy and The Simpsons tend to have a lot. So it's nice to see the Great North finally back on the lineup, even though it's gonna take another 3-week break after next week, which kind of sucks. But I honestly don't know Fox's strategy with holding over episodes. I mean, they could just air 12 if they wanted to. I mean, what's the difference if they don't air 12 and air whatever? I don't get it. So anyways, I finally like that we get an episode about Moon. He's the last of the family to get some emphasis. You know how Judy's the main character of the Great North. Beef gets his focus in Romantic Me, and Curl Interrupted kinda in the pilot too. Wolf and Honeybee get their share in Avocado Barter, and even Feast of Not People for an extent, and then Ham gets his big break in the dancing episode, Pride and Prejudice dance. And then now it's just Moon, and he's finally got an episode. We've known the least about Moon, and it's nice to know that we finally get an episode, because I like having the focus on Moon and the lesson of growing up and childhood beliefs. First of all, again, the episode was all executed. I'll start with the subplot. So, the subplot is pretty good, even though it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's just Jerry comes for a visit. Honeybee then tells Wolf he always wants to copy her, but it doesn't work out. Then when, Jerry tries spending time in Alaska with them, he's not able to keep up with the activities, and he keeps getting hurt, or he's not able to do things that Wolf and Honeybee are able to do because they've lived in Alaska longer than he has, for an extent. And, then Honeybee then tells Jerry, it's okay not to have the same interests, because just because Honeybee's happy in Alaska doesn't mean Jerry will be, and, but they're family no matter what. There's that saying where younger siblings tend to want to follow their older's interests, but it's also important to realize that it isn't for them as well. And now, if we're focusing on the main plot, I really, really like this one. Having the focus being on the nature of kids growing up was a sweet idea. When Moon asks his friends about the Bigfoot Club, his friends tell him they did that when they were 9 and now they were 10. In just a speck of time. For kids, interest can just suddenly change. But it's also important to not let go of your past just because others are doing it too. Moon, because of this, then Moon goes on to say that Bigfoot doesn't exist. And then he throws away his memories in the trash. which then Beef then takes all those memories to the woods, and he starts singing a song, which is obviously in his own imagination, but I really like the song. Beef's point in his song, where silly things like monsters, aliens, and even Bigfoot are what can keep someone emotionally secure, sane, and safe while going through the toughness of adulthood, was really good. As Moon grows up, he'll start to let go of some things, but it's a good moral to never stop believing and keep them in your heart just because, other people stop believing it too. You don't have to be like other people, to be yourself. The great thing about Beef, that, me or another viewer or, an online friend of mine have been saying is that, Beef emphasizes himself, as a tough man. He gets up early in the morning. He's hardworking, but he's also a father who's available. He's emotionally available. And he's not only because in the pilot he's pretty insecure and kind of weak deep down, but he's been getting better. He's been getting better after he had that talk with Judy. It's nice to know that there's continuity, a lot of continuity in the show. Despite most of it being episodic, which I really wish Fox would seriously stop doing that. They need more continuity in their animated shows. Like, their live-action sitcoms like Call Me Kat have continuity, and so why can't their cartoons have it too? It makes no sense to me. But anyways, getting back to the Great North. Because Beef is just an open father. He's available to his kids. He also mentions a lot of things that affect his life in the song, like his divorce. The theme that the imaginary silly things, they're okay to have in your heart is nice. And I also like how the two plots, the Jerry and the Moon plot, they tie together at the end with the family coming up with a plan, and they get Jerry to dress up as Bigfoot to get Moon to believe again. Even though it's obviously not real, it's just, the family goes out of their way to make Moon happy and, get him in the believing spirit again. It's such a sweet ending. It hones in on the theme of growing up, not just for Moon, but, also for Jerry as well. Both plots tie in the message of growing up in a very sweet tone. For some people, it might even get you in the feels. Also, something a little off topic that I wanted to mention before I close this off was there might have been a subtle BoJack Horseman reference in this episode. So then when Moon was sad when he couldn't find Bigfoot, Beef asked, "That's an awful long face, son. You sure you're not part horse?" And because Moon's voice actress is Aparna Nancherla, and she voiced Hollyhock in BoJack Horseman. So if you're a BoJack viewer, you might have gotten a chuckle out of that if you caught it. Maybe it was a coincidence, but some people thought it was noticeable. Honestly, I kind of find Debbie a little annoying. That's really the only negative I had with this episode, which kind of prevented it from getting a higher score. It's already good, like really, really good. It probably could have ranked up higher on my list just if Debbie wasn't there, because I honestly think she was kind of annoying. Like, hopefully if she has more emphasis, she's not just the bully who, thinks boys are uninteresting. It was never funny. It's just boring. But that's so minor in the scale of things. This episode was just fantastic. It hones in the message of growing up in a heartwarming way while also being funny. One thing that's different about the Great North is that its emphasis on family is really, really strong. Okay, you might argue that, yeah, all these sitcoms are about families, they're generic. The problem is, the other sitcoms, especially Family Guy and The Simpsons, have forgotten so much about family that their stories aren't relatable, they're not as interesting. I was interested the entire way throughout this episode. I've already seen it 3 times, and I could easily watch it again and be just as interested. Whereas when I rewatched The Simpsons, I had to shut it off after 10 minutes. You can really see the difference in quality right there between the two shows nowadays. I hope Jerry becomes part of the family, kind of, because I like his pizza surprise thing. Honestly, that thing was just so silly and funny, yet sweet at the same time. But he won't be in next week's outing, unfortunately. He might be in the final 2 episodes of the season because there's 11 episodes in the season, but I honestly don't know because it hints that he might stay, but just know he's definitely not in next week's episode. But this was really good. Probably my second or third favorite of the season, and this show has really been hitting it right out of the gate with such strong episodes. You know, with the exception of maybe Period Piece and Curl Interrupted, all the episodes have been pretty dang good. So, and maybe the pilot. Well, I thought the pilot was pretty good, so, which is rare. Anyways, those are my thoughts on week 20 of Fox Annie-Dome. I know I sound kind of quiet, but I'm trying. I just recorded in the late night because I had something to do. So, and people are sleeping, so I try not to be too loud. What did you think about these episodes? The Great North was really good. Bob's Burgers a close runner-up. Les Harts was solid. I don't want to talk about Family Guy and The Simpsons, like, bleh. So, anyways, what did you think about these episodes? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.